Welcome to the Anchor Premier Podcast, where we aim to translate real estate into reality. We hope to educate and entertain and invite you into the conversation. Myself, Brian Cohen, and my co-hosts, Elliot McWhorter and Johnny Dugan. If you have a comment or an idea for a topic or interview, please leave it below. And don't forget to like and subscribe so that when new episodes come out, you're the first to know. Now let's get to it.
All right, welcome back to the Anchor Premier Podcast, where every Thursday we attempt to translate realty into reality. In this show, we cover all things home and real estate. We're going to focus on educating and hopefully occasionally entertaining the consumer. That's y'all out there. So we're going to introduce our panel. So we've got Elliot McWhorter.
Hello.
He's at Realtor Elliot on all the platforms. Cool. And new Audi owner.
Oh, yeah.
We've got
Very
Brian
excited.
Cohen, residential and commercial real estate guru and Tesla owner.
Yep, Tesla owner that I don't really get to drive anymore.
He is the Brian Cohen on the Grams, the Instagrams. And I'm Johnny Dugan. I call myself the residential real estate and craftsman of the deal. I came up with that, so who knows
It
if I could
sounds
keep it.
delicious.
I'm at Mountain Mansions on Facebook. Come find me. I drive a jacked up F-150.
Yes, he
You know what
does.
that means. I'm rednecker than you.
I was going to say something else, but we'll leave that one.
We are the Anchor Premier Realty Group, and today's show, we're going to start a series on the selling process, all the way from step one, which should be investigating and finding an agent, all the way through closing, delivery of the property, and what do you bring to closing? Keys, your shirt, and we're going to go over all that stuff starting today, and we're going to have a handful of segments on it, and eventually be able to download the whole series. So
Yeah. And so we're going to also focus on the seller side, so everything kind of is contextually consistent. And then we'll go back and kind of cover all the same points because they look different from different perspectives.
Yep, exactly. So we've got a little outline here. I'll try to keep things on the rails, but
Sure.
we're gonna fire off with kind of this with step one. You've thought about selling your house, and now you gotta start figuring out how to get it done. So
Yeah.
what's step one?
It always starts with I thought about it, but a lot of times the thinking to taking action is when people like kind of don't know what to do, and how often I've found that the faster somebody shows up, the faster they disappear. And I know that's a little bit cynical, but it's because it's happened a million times.
Right.
Oh, I want to sell this. Oh, I want to do this. And then 2 weeks later, they're like, oh, we changed our mind.
Right.
So the answer is, to me, is kind of in the question when to start the conversation. And the conversation is when you start thinking about it. It's not when you're ready to pull the trigger.
Right.
It's when you start thinking about it, because it is a conversation.
Yep.
Yeah, you could start the consultation process early. Like, you don't have to contact an agent or wait to contact an agent or wait to take that first step until you're like, okay, I've figured everything out. Now I'm ready to take action on it.
Right.
No, just start the consulting early. Start the conversation early. We'll wait,
Right.
but we'll start help getting you prepared
Yep.
well ahead of time.
That way you don't have to figure it out all on your own.
Right.
Yeah.
Use an expert.
And you also don't have to make any false assumptions.
Right.
You can just, hey, we're thinking about doing this. You do this all the time. I mean, like it's funny to me sometimes how these things don't translate with real estate. I think just because you don't buy and sell a house every day, but like, what do you buy more often? You go through a process of like research, thinking, talking to somebody who's done it before, all that kind of stuff. The same thing, and that's what we're here for. That's a big part of our job, is not to just actually sell something.
And the best part of that is we're free up until the day you hand over the keys.
Yeah,
Essentially.
pretty much.
So
Yeah.
you can search out our expertise well before you're really getting into it, and we're happy to talk about it.
Yeah.
And so, to your point, start the search. Start thinking about agents. Start thinking about collecting the advice and counsel of a good agent. Like you said, right when you first start thinking about it.
Sure.
And maybe what the agent tells you is you should wait, or at least maybe what they tell you leads you to understand you should probably wait.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Which is I've had happen multiple times, but it's okay because there's nothing worse to me than getting halfway into something that somebody thought they wanted to do, and then they realize that they don't, and you got to figure out how to undo it. And sometimes, when we're talking the context of selling a house, once that thing's under contract, there's no cancellation. At least in Georgia, there's no cancellation from the seller side.
Right.
If you default and they sue you, the law will make you sell them that property,
Right.
and you'll probably pay damages on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would rather have somebody talk to me 6 months ahead and realize we better wait,
Right.
than be like, let's do it, and then oh crap, you know.
Right.
All right, so we did a recent podcast. You can go find that podcast on Picking an Agent. We did a dedicated
We'll
podcast.
link it.
Yeah. Link, subscribe,
If we can
ding.
figure out how.
We'll link it right here.
That's right.
Right here.
So we've decided we're gonna sell the house. We've decided, all right, let's seek out some wise counsel. How do I
Yep.
find wise counsel?
Google.
I mean, that's legit.
That's how we
Great place
find a
to
lot of
start,
things.
right? You know, you before you go to a restaurant, you look up Google reviews.
Yep.
That's a great, easy place to start if you don't know anyone, you know, because everyone
Yeah.
and their mother is an agent. So if you don't know an
Sure.
agent, look them up online.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Check out their online profile,
that's a
you
great
know,
point.
see what's up. And then have a conversation. Just because you have a conversation with an agent doesn't mean you have to stick with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you guys don't jive, find somebody
Yeah.
else. It's okay.
Yeah, it's a lot. How they're gonna serve you might not be consistent with like what your needs are. Like if you value certain things and somebody else doesn't, you know, they're probably not going to understand your perspective, or at least it's harder for them to, even if they try. So, I mean, like something I learned, you know, is, you know, a lot of people look at Google. I think it's easy. It's good to do all these steps. You like substantiate somebody based on online presence, like actually meet them. But also most people find us because we know somebody they know, and we served them.
Right.
You know, like, hey, I sold my house with Elliot. Elliot did an incredible job. Here's his number, or
Right.
I'll have him call you. That's the best way. Just to be honest, if you're giving somebody a realtor referral, the best way is to have us call them, because that way it gets them off the hook. That's just me. That's me. But when you're finding somebody via a referral, to me, it's always important to remember you have that person also. Ask people that also reflect those values that you have. Great example. A friend of mine, this is a kind of funny example and weird example, but a friend of mine was like, when Super Troopers came out, which is like one of my all-time favorite movies now, he was like, it's terrible. I hated it. And I was like, well, I mean, he's a good friend of mine, so I guess I'm not going to watch it. You know, I'm not going to waste my time. And on 2 years later, I watched it, and I was like, this movie is hilarious. Like, I loved it from the moment I turned it on.
Right.
And I was like, how did you not love this?
Right.
And he was just like, I don't know, I didn't find it funny. And it's like his value, or in this case, like his sense of humor, was just vastly different.
Just wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, just wrong. Yeah, he's just a moron. No, but it was just vastly different, because I find stupid funny to be hilarious, and if he's like, well, you know, just it wasn't intelligent enough for me. It's like, you know. So I do the same thing for anything. Like if somebody's like, hey, who sold your house? Like if they only value low cost, and I value quality.
Right.
The two very rarely correlate.
So the point there is referral. It is one of the main ways to find an agent, but it's simply a mechanism to get a name of a warm body that has served someone you know. So that's great. You now have them, and you have that as a reference, but you don't necessarily use your friend's experience as the predeterminative factor of what your experience is going to be.
Right.
So don't choose them. Go seek them, interview them, or have them call you based on a referral, certainly. But don't say, hey, helped her, seemed to do an okay job, so I'm going to go ahead and hire them.
Yeah.
Still go through the other diligent steps of talking to them.
Yep.
And then, just kind of like having a, if you're going to have anything done, say on your house, you should get 3 bids and all that stuff. And I think we should be interviewing 2 or 3 agents for the reasons you're talking about, Brian. That's, you need to have at least some basis of comparison. So a minimum of 2. Just to say, okay, I see where he's talking about this guy or this gal, and they're just a little bit different. They offer this service and this level, et cetera. You have to have some basis of comparison, so a minimum of 2, and we suggest 3. But referrals is a great way to get them, and you can just talk to your friends. But that's the nice thing about socials. I mean, be careful though. If you put it on the socials, does anybody know a good agent?
Yeah,
the
floodgates will open.
Right. So
because everybody loves their person, right?
Yeah, right.
It's like the same thing with any like trusted advisor.
Right.
Everybody loves their financial advisor. Everybody loves their insurance guy. And I'm not saying that you're an insurance guy. We probably have 3 different of all those things in this room, and love our guy or girl for completely different reasons. I love mine because he talks, like my financial advisor, because he talks on my level. Like he talks like kind of like higher level strategy kind of stuff, and that's the way my mind works. But if you're somebody who's like, I don't like, he talks over me, like I think he talks down to me, then you're not going to jive with him the way as he maybe somebody else's would.
Right.
So same thing applies.
And for the record, I like my financial advisors to speak very plain. Like, bottom line, the upper level strategies, keep them to yourself. Mutual funds, thank you. So those are the mechanisms to seek out the names and the initial contact. And then I made one note of consider the location or the home base of the agent.
Yeah.
And so I've had recently 3 listings that were within 15 minutes of my house and our office, and I just run by those houses a couple times a week. One of them's vacant, and so I'd like to just make sure no windows are broken or anything crazy like that. And I do that because I can. Yeah. And so understanding that it doesn't mean that somebody can't service you from a little bit more of a distance. But if you're in a tie break situation, or you're just like, I'm trying to whittle this list down to 3, you might chop off the people that have an hour and 20-minute drive to your place, because they're just less inclined to do the little things that are kind of required throughout the process of selling your home.
And they're not going to have that hands-on. In most cases, they're not going to have that hands-on, intimate knowledge of let's say that neighborhood. Right. Or if you ask them like, hey, where's the local grocery store, or like your street that comes off, you used to be able to turn left on 400 South from your street. You can't do that anymore. And if you've only been up here once in the last 3 years, you're probably not going to know that changed. Not that it matters, but some people care. Right. That I don't want to take a U-turn every time I come off my street. Right. Like Megan told me that the other day. If they turn this into highways and have to make a U-turn to go home, we're selling the house. I was like, oh, great. Thanks so much for at least the heads up.
But like when we kind of split up the duties with our team based on our home base and our location. Yep. Right. And that's on purpose, and that's just simply to better serve that specific locale. One, it's because of our respective locale expertise. And even though, we're only a few miles apart ultimately, but I say a few, 10, 15, 20 miles. But at the end of the day, it's less about for us, because we communicate so much about the expertise as much as it's just a level of service you can provide to someone who's closer to you. Yeah. And so, like I said, if you're in a tie break or you're just trying to, all right, I got 8 agents that I'm kind of considering, you might filter off, the ones that are just a little too far away.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, that actually reminds me of so I've done some deals that were a little bit longer distance. One of them was in San Antonio, Texas, and obviously, I've been to San Antonio many times, but I don't know San Antonio, and it was in an area that I definitely don't know, I partnered with a local broker. And I kind of handled one side. He kind of handled the local stuff, like letting in the contractors to do stuff. And one time he called me, and he's like, "Hey, I just want to give you a heads up. There's a homeless camp set up in the parking lot of this old store that we are selling." And I was like, "Oh," I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "I went inside. Nobody got inside, so we don't have to worry about like squatters or anything like that. But we're gonna have to call the authorities and have them kind of like tell them to move on, in all the ways." And I was like, "Yeah, if I didn't have you, we could have totally got to closing and then be like, yeah, we can't close because it became an apartment for people that were otherwise unsheltered, and I would have literally no way of knowing."
And the local ordinance says once they're 90 days, you can't remove them for another 90 days.
Yeah. Oh, good Lord. Oh, yeah. And just that, like he would know local law.
Yeah.
I don't.
And on the commercial side, there's more of that happens, kind of interstate transactions. Sure. But what we see here in Florida is, a lot of us are, in Georgia doing Florida deals is really what I meant to say. And that you would hire someone there, local, that could be right there and handle the business right there. But you've got a relationship with the customer. They're moving from here to there or vice versa. And then so you're kind of working the deal. But everybody talks. I think it's understood that the real estate professional world is really based on specifically your location. And so the whole general point here is that when you are picking someone, consider their home base, what is their home office, and what kind of commute would they have to your place. And the longer it is, the less inclined they're going to be stopping by and checking things or meeting and that kind of thing.
And kind of like Elliot's, you've had a bunch of people that are out of state contact you via YouTube because for this exact reason. Yeah,
they want to move to Atlanta. COVID shook everything up, and now people want to change states. And a lot of people are just wanting to move down here, and they don't know anything about any of the areas around here, so they just call and ask, "What's this area like? What's this? What do you like? Are you more of a city kind of guy? You like being in the country? You like being around a bunch of people? You like amenities? What do you like?" And I kind of point you in that direction of where I think might be a good area for you to look to buy your next house.
It's a great, and that's one of the big ways that we actually get referrals is through other agents. Maybe somebody in Florida that we know or that's connected to us. I'm connected to people across the country through the Young Professionals Network, and that's how I met the guy that did the Texas deal with me. And it was like, "Hey, I need some help on this," or "I have a client that's moving to your state, can I connect you with them because you're the local expert?" And, everybody wins.
So I'll refer back. We're not going to do a deep dive into all the questions to ask agents. We went into all that when we were talking about, we did a podcast on, finding an agent. So any last notes you got there, Brian, before we wrap up this segment, and we'll take a little break and move on to the next.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say, Base, is when you're picking an agent, the only thing I didn't explicitly say last time was make sure you pick the person who you think is going to represent you the best, and not the person who either charges the least or gives you the highest sales price, because those two are they're easy and they're gimmicky, and sometimes they show desperation.
No, agreed. And to your point, if you're going, it's like anything else. If you're saying, I'm looking at, I interviewed someone else and they said that they could sell my house for another $20,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
That it's essentially a fallacy. The market is what drives the price. I can help you set a strategic price based on, and we're going to get into setting the price on your home and all the strategy involved there. But the market's going to determine the price, not me, not the other person. Now, there is obviously in your strategy and in your marketing, there is definite value there. But to simply say, well, he said he could sell it for more, so I'm going to go with them.
Yeah.
That there should be, if that's going to be your decision, it's got to be because of the content of why they're going to sell it for more, not just he said he's going to sell it for more.
Yeah, if they've got better reach, or you feel like their marketing is better, or you feel like their network is better, their track record's better, their experience is better.
Right.
Those are the reasons to pick somebody relative to that reason, not just because they're the one who said they could do it the most, because they still have to do it. And if nobody, you can ask anything you want for anything, but it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody's going to pay it.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So.
And a lot of strategies in trying to hook sellers is to guarantee a price, or at least, state, I can get you more than anybody else, that kind of thing. Or like guaranteeing in a time frame, or those kinds of things.
Sure.
And so there are ways to get maximum dollar for your house, for sure. There's ways to sell it quickly, for sure. But to be stating that is like that, this is what I do, I guarantee it, or whatever. It's usually just a hook.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is a personal thing, but I don't ever sell myself over other people, because to me, that by trashing your competition, that says nothing about my value. It only tries to degrade somebody else's. So I always, and if somebody does the same thing to me, like it's an immediate turn off.
Right.
Oh, you have so-and-so insurance. Oh, they're terrible. That doesn't tell me that yours is better.
Right.
It tells me that you think theirs is worse.
Right.
And that's completely subjective. Final thoughts, Elliot?
No, I think we covered everything. I think it's a good foundation for anyone who's just beginning the thought process, wanting to start the conversation.
Yep.
Some good tools.
Yeah. So as we wrap it up, don't forget, the sooner is better than later, and being prepared is always going to give you better results.